I hate to state the bleeding obvious, but US President Joe Biden has had a shocker of a fortnight. And sure, while much of the Joe Biden presidency has been a bit of a shocker, this recent period of time must be really making Democrat strategists want to bang their heads against a wall, given not only how close we are to the 2024 election, but also because all their attempts at lawfare to get Donald Trump off the ballot and into the jailhouse seem to be, so far, failing. Trump is still streaks ahead in the Republican primary polls and consistently about 1 or 2 percentage points ahead of Biden in the national general election polls. Most alarmingly of all, if you're a Democrat, is the fact that according to a McLaughlin and Associates poll, Donald Trump is a full 5 points ahead of Joe Biden at 48 to 43% in the battleground states. And as we know, it's those battleground states that decide the Electoral College, which is what ultimately decides the presidency. Now, this polling is despite a relentless, years-long campaign by the mainstream media, big tech giants, and corporate America to smear Trump as literally Hitler and a threat to American democracy, on top of the legal mudflinging by the Democrats. It's quite remarkable he's still doing so well in the polls. No wonder they call him Teflon Don. So the last thing you want if you are Joe Biden or anyone who is planning to vote for him is for Joe Biden to be exposed to be even more like, well, Joe Biden. That is, a senile old man who is 1/25th Amendment away from a nursing home. Now, look, we all joked back in 2019 and 2020 about Biden's dithering and occasional lapses in memory and cognitive function. At the time, it sort of felt like having a giggle at your old Uncle Joe at Christmas lunch, who occasionally says things that make him seem a bit off with the pixies, but ultimately you could have a good conversation with him while he carves up the Christmas ham. However, as time progressed, it was obvious Biden's condition was becoming worse and worse. And I, like many other people, started to feel a bit guilty about laughing at his gaffes and stumbles. Sometimes literal stumbles. That was March 2021, and it was around then that I started to feel really icky about the whole thing. After all, nobody really likes watching a fragile old man fall up the stairs. And they also don't like watching one fall off a bicycle. That was June 2022. Anyway, as we all know, the Democrats have denied and obfuscated and insisted until they are blue in the face that Joe Biden is mentally sharp and his age has no impact on his ability to run the country. Now, the thing is, I agree with them on the second point. Age isn't actually the issue here. Joe Biden is 81 years old, and there are plenty of mentally sharp people in their 80s and older out there. Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II passed away when she was 96 and was in peak mental fitness right up until the very end. And Donald Trump, after all, is only 3 years younger than Biden, and he will likely be the Republican nominee, but Trump is still sharp as a tack, despite him being of a similar age to old Sleepy Joe. It's Biden's very obvious cognitive decline that is the problem, not his age per se. And here is just a small sample of what I'm talking about.
Anyway, and I don't want to, well, maybe choose my words. I was just thinking, anyway, but I just, look, I mean, Putin's kleptocracy,
And much much as the Democrats might try and deny it, that cognitive decline was crystallized by special counsel Robert Hur after a year-long inquiry into Joe Biden's handling of classified files related to national security. Mr. Hur asserted that Joe Biden should not be prosecuted for willfully retaining classified files after leaving the vice presidency in 2017 because he found Biden to be, and I quote, a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory, which would therefore make it difficult to secure a conviction. While initially conservatives were outraged at what seemed to be a giant double standard, after all, Donald Trump was not given the same leniency when it came to his handling of classified files, I think Robert Hur, who is a Republican, was, in his way, playing four-dimensional chess. The result of that report was that the media sphere was flooded with comments about Joe Biden and his poor memory, which was made even worse by the fact that when Joe Biden tried to defend his memory and mental acuity in a press conference after the report came out, he managed to confuse Egypt with Mexico.
The conduct of the response in the Gaza Strip has been over the top. I think that, as you know, initially the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in.
Of course, Biden was actually referring to the president of Egypt, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, not the president of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Now, I could spend the rest of this editorial going over all the times Joe Biden sniffed the heads of children or forgot what he was saying or thought he'd had a recent conversation with someone who died several years ago. And yes, that has happened with poor old Joe multiple times. But like I said, I feel a little guilty about laughing at someone who is clearly the victim of elder abuse. And besides, the most interesting development of the last week on the Joe Biden front has less to do with Joe Biden and more to do with, of all people, failed presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. A stalwart of the Democratic Party, she's always been a major supporter of Joe Biden, stating emphatically in mid-2020 that Biden should not concede to Donald Trump under any circumstances.
Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances because I think this is going to drag out, and eventually I do believe he will win if we don't give an inch.
Now, I could go into the diabolical hypocrisy of encouraging Biden to contest the potential 2020 election results, then shrieking about democracy and insurrection when Trump had the audacity to do so himself, as was his right. But we already know there are different standards for Democrats and Republicans when it comes to elections. As the saying goes, if the left didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. But the point is, even Hillary Clinton has come out in a recent interview and said that Joe Biden's age is an issue.
I talk to people in the White House all the time, and, they know it's an issue. But as I like to say, look, it's a legitimate issue. It's a legitimate issue for Trump, who's only 3 years younger, right? So it's an issue. Once you say that, then you have to also talk about what's at stake in the election, and I'm for Joe Biden for re-election on the merits, because I think he's done a really good job as president.
Now, I know she obfuscates at the end to say she thinks Biden has done a really good job as president, etc., etc. But remember, everything she says is strategized within an inch of its life. That jab about his age was not accidental, nor was it inconsequential. She likely has a huge amount of influence amongst Democrat voters, and if she's putting it out there that Biden's age is a problem, she knows people will listen. Which brings me to a prediction that I made at the start of 2022, that Hillary Clinton is going to have one more tilt at the presidency. Now, my prediction was slightly off. I thought she was going to wind up president back in 2022 by simple process of elimination. Either way, both Joe and Kamala quite obviously could be justifiably bumped, which was very easy to foresee when the Democrats were tossing up who would end up on the ticket. Now we're at a stage, and have been for some time, where Biden, because of his neurological state and advanced age, along with the bonus of his bad approval ratings, is 1/25th Amendment away from a nursing home, and Kamala's position is massively on the ropes because she doesn't seem to do anything and people just generally hate her. I continued to say that once Biden had been bumped, Kamala Harris would obviously step into the presidency and take Hillary Clinton as her VP. Then there would only be one thing standing between Hillary and the presidency, which would have been, of course, President Harris. So Hillary being Hillary, there would possibly appear some sort of leaked scandal about Kamala or urgent Harris family matter or, some sort of accident that would ultimately force Kamala to step down, thus allowing Hillary Clinton to finally ascend to the office of President of the United States. Obviously, that didn't happen in 2022, much as I'm sure Hillary Clinton would have liked it to. But here we are in 2024. Hillary Clinton is doing the interview rounds again and throwing shade at Joe Biden's age. Could it be that we're going to be treated to a rematch of Trump v. Hillary in 2024?